morning, children. How are you? I hope you are good. All of you, welcome to the online classes. Today, our topic is Indian rivers and water resources. It is fifth lesson from 10th class in social studies. Students, say some rivers names. Very good. Ganga river, Indus river, Brahmaputra river, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri rivers. Very good. Today we will discuss about different types of rivers and uses of water. The drainage of India has evolved and adjusted itself with the evolution of the three physiographic units. First one is the Himalayas, second one is Peninsular Plateau, and third one is the Indo-Gangetic Plain. On the basis of its origin, the drainage system in India can be broadly divided into two categories. First one is the Himalayan rivers and second one is the peninsular rivers. The Himalayan rivers, we see the Himalayan rivers. The Himalayan rivers belong to the three principal systems, the Indus, the Ganga and the Brahmaputra. These rivers originate from almost the same region within few kilometers of each other, separated by water divides. They first flow parallel to the main axis of the mountains. Then they take a sudden bend towards the south, cutting through the massive mountain chain to reach the North Indian plains. In the process, they have curved at deep V-shaped valleys. This is well exhibited by Indus and the Brahmaputra rivers. The Himalayan rivers are perennial. This is because the rivers are supplied on rainfall as well as the melting snow. Here, perennial rivers, there will be continuous flow in the In the rainy season, water will be available in the Himalayan rivers. In the summer season, water also available due to the snow melt. Himalayan rivers originates in Himalayas. Himalayan river create V-shaped valleys. Himalayan rivers separated by water divides. Here, mountains act as a water divides. Huge erosional activities done by the Himalayan rivers. V-shaped valleys created by Indus River and Brahmaputra River. Next, we see the Indus system. The Indus system. Indus River system total length is 2,900 kilometers. In India, 790 kilometers. Indus River originates in the northern slope of the Kailas range in Tibet near Lake Manasarovar. It flows a northwesterly course through Tibet. It enters India territory in Jammu and Kashmir. The main tributaries of the Indus in India are Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Beas and Satluj. It covers Jammu and Kashmir, Punjab and Himachal Pradesh states of India. Next, the Ganga system. Ganga river length is 2,525 kilometers. Bhagirathi originate from Gangotri glacier. Alaknanda stream originate from Satapanath glacier. Alaknanda and Bhagirathi both joins at Devaprayaga. Come Devaprayaga onwards we called as Ganga river. Ganga river has so many tributaries. Yamuna is largest tributary. Here some tributaries of Ganga: Chambal, Gandak, Gomati, Gaggar, Son, Betwa. Ganga river flowing mostly Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal. Finally, it enter into Bangladesh. Students, once again we see the Ganga river system. The Ganga has twin sources. The main one is the Gangotri glacier, where it is called the Bhagirathi. The other is the Satapnath glacier, northwest of Badrinath, where it is called the Alkananda. The two join at Devaprayag to form the Ganga that emerges from the hills of Haridwar. The Ganga is joined by a large number of tributaries. A majority of them originate in the Himalayan ranges, but some of them have their sources in the peninsular plateau. Next one is the Brahmaputra river system. The Brahmaputra river length is 2900 kilometers length. Brahmaputra river originate snout of Chamayungdang glacier near Manasarovar. Brahmaputra river has different names. For example, Sangpo in Tibet, Siang river in Arunachala Pradesh. Brahmaputra river flows eastwards through southern Tibet. Near Lhotse Jong, it opens out into a wide navigable channel for 640 kilometers. Suddenly, it takes bend in Dihang Valley. It enter into Arunachal Pradesh. When it enter into Arunachal Pradesh, it has two tributaries, Dihang and Lohit. Finally, it enters into the Bangladesh. Next one, Peninsular river system. Peninsular river system. The Western Ghats are the water divide between the major peninsular rivers, discharging their water in the Bay of Bengal and as small rivulets joining the Arabian Sea. Most of the major peninsular rivers except Narmada and Tapati flow from west to east. The Chambal, Sindh, Betwa, Ken and Son, originating in the northern part of the peninsula, belong to the Ganga river system. The other major river system of the peninsular drainage are the Mahanadi, the Godavari, the Krishna and the Kaveri. Peninsular rivers are characterized by fixed course, absence of meanders and largely non-perennial flow of water. The Godavari is the largest peninsular river system. The source of this river is in the Trayambakam plateau near Nasik in Maharashtra and discharges its water into the Bay of Bengal. Here, west flowing rivers Narmada and Tapati. East flowing rivers Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Penna and Kaveri. Apart from east, some rivers are the Chambal, Sindhu, Betwa, Son. They are originate same place. These are tributaries of Ganga. These tributaries are joining in the Ganga river system. These are originated in south. They moved towards the north. Students, we see the water uses. Water is a resource that becomes available to us as an annual flow. We try to estimate how much we would be able to use during the year. In order to do this, we need to recall the water cycle and estimate the inflows and outflows during the year. Students, this picture indicates water cycle. Here, surface water inflow, precipitation, evapotranspiration, evaporation from saturate surfaces, evaporation from surface storage, evapotranspiration from crops, water used for domestic and industrial purpose, groundwater inflow. Inflows. For any area, inflow equal to precipitation plus surface flow plus groundwater flow. Surface flow includes rivers, streams, canals, and other flows on the surface. Groundwater flow is difficult to estimate, but it can be done. Precipitation includes snow, dew, hail, etc. To estimate the precipitation of an area, we take an average over many years since precipitation varies from year to year. Surface and groundwater flows. For your area, whether a village or town, list the surface water inflows from the river or canal of irrigation projects. A small region such as a village may receive water through canals, pipelines, etc. List all outside sources. This has to be added to the amount of rainfall to get an idea of the total inflow for the village. However, it is more difficult to get an idea of groundwater inflows, but the general slope of the land helps one make a guess as to the possible direction of the flow. Outflows. Evapotranspiration. Evaporation, the turning of water into vapor, takes place all the time in water bodies. It can happen to any exposed surface water such as lakes, rivers, seas, etc. Living things also give off water into the atmosphere through their breathing process. This is called transpiration. The total amount of water added to the atmosphere from both evaporation and transpiration is called evapotranspiration. Next, water flowing out via surface flows and groundwater. Imagine a region such as a village. Some amount of water would flow out of the village as surface flows through streams. During monsoon months, the surface flow would increase substantially. A portion of the rainfall percolates into the soil and travels to the underground strata and recharges the aquifers. Some of it flows into the becomes available for use through wells and bore wells, and a portion of it goes into very deep aquifers that do not become available. Some of the underground water becomes part of flows that eventually appear in streams or rivers. Next, water for agriculture. Water reaches the root zone of crops either through rainfall or some process of irrigation. There is a capacity of the soil to store moisture. If there excess water such as a flood and this is not able to percolate below, it would damage the roots. On the other hand, in a drought situation, if there is not enough moisture in the root zone, the crops will either wilt. Next, water used for domestic purpose and for animals. Water used for drinking, cooking, washing, cleaning, and for animals is vital. Planning for these components is needed to increase the availability so that a minimum amount is actually made available to all, irrespective of their income. Next, water for industrial use. Water is required for manufacturing process and this demand often compares with domestic and agricultural uses. This needs to be taken into account as this conflict is and the increase. The challenge areas facing industrial use are recycling of water and control of pollution. A village may have tanks, ponds, lakes. These are all surface storages. Most villages in India draw water from wells and tube wells. They are dependent on groundwater storage. These inflows and storage are connected. While some of the water flowing in is used directly, one part of this is recharging or replenishing the storage. Similarly, the use of tube wells draws water from storages and lower the water available in them. Depending on comparative rates of inflow and outflow, we can judge what is happening to the stock of water over many years. The question that we face today is the depletion of groundwater storages and a tendency not to care about the availability for future generations. Students, let us see the water use in the Tungabhadra river basin. Tungabhadra, shared by the two southern states of Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh, is a tributary of the larger river system Krishna. It originates in the Western Ghats with a catchment area of 71,417 kilometers square, of which 57,672 square meter are in Karnataka. The Tungabhadra basin has two parts. First one is the upper and middle catchment in Karnataka. Second one is the lower portion of the catchment in Andhra Pradesh. According to official statistics, farmland is the main land cover in the states. Others such as trees, groves, fallow land, cultivable waste, permanent pastures, forests, and natural vegetation cover the rest of the area. Some of the territory is used for storage by water harvesting systems called tanks. The lower portion of the basin in Andhra Pradesh are characterized by lower rainfall and drought conditions. Some regions depend on rainfall and underground water. Other areas depend on surface follows by canals that carry water from dams built along Tungabhadra. There is a lot of difference in water availability between these two types of regions. Encroachment of public lands for cultivation is common. It results in more land being brought under cultivation at the expense of tree cover. Rampant felling of trees and mining activity is resulting in forest degradation, along with the destruction of the habitat of highly treated flora and fauna. Inflows of groundwater depend on the tree cover in the catchment areas. Inadequate tree cover leads to water runoff as surface flow without getting a chance to recharge the underground system. Moreover, this also causes flash floods. If we wish to be fair to both the rain-fed and canal irrigated regions, we must adopt a different plan for water conservation and a system of sharing water. Tungabhadra Dam has gradually lost its water storage capacity over the decades. About 50 years ago, the capacity of the reservoir was 3,766 million cubic meters. Now, with the accumulation of silt due to mining, dust, soil erosion, debris, the reservoir has lost its storage capacity by as much as 849 million cubic meters of water. As one study says, no proper mining standards are followed in iron ore extraction. The mining of iron ore at Kudremukh and manganese in Sandur has seriously affected the stability of the catchments in the form of soil erosion and siltation of several small reservoirs, traditional tanks and Tungabhadra reservoir. Conflicts between Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh are generally related to what is available for use. Water is a flow resource and its storage or use upstream affects what is available to people downstream. Water is shared based on agreements between state government. Access to water is a precondition in this farmland area where 80% of the population depending on agriculture for their livelihoods. Irrigation is provided through canal system, while in rain-fed regions farmers extract groundwater through borewells. During the last 2 decades, there has been an increasing trend in the number of small towns and industrial areas. This has made the competing demands for water more complex. While increased industrialization and growth of urban areas have improved standards of living for some, the same activities have caused pollution, especially by industrial units. There are 27 functioning large units and 2,543 small units in this river basin. They consume a big amount of water per day. Industries were permitted to discharge effluents into the river, but flowing public protest in 1984 regarding discharge of molasses that killed fish on a large scale. Laws were enacted requiring industry to discharge only treated effluent. These laws are not implemented forcefully. Hence, severe pollution of the river system continues. There has been a mismatch between keeping pace with developmental activities on various fronts and providing sanitation and drinking water supply for all sections of society. both in small towns and rural areas. Some say that drinking water and sanitation are basic needs and a minimum amount has to be provided irrespective of the ability to pay for this. When we experiment with metered water, we have to allow that a certain section of society would not be able to afford the water that they must get as a basic requirement. A report for this river basin says provision of drinking water to township is not planned well. Particularly, the small towns have serious access and equity related issues more so during summer. Students, next we see the rational and equable use of water. An example. Hiware Bazar was selected under the Adarsh Grama Yojana of Maharashtra government for watershed and all-round development of the village. Hiware Bazar is located in Ahmednagar district in Maharashtra. It is situated on the eastern side of the Sahyadri mountain ranges that run north-south and separate Konkan, the coastal region, from the rest of Maharashtra. Ahmednagar district is drought prone with an average annual rainfall of about 400 mm. Mm means millimeters. The soil and water conservation works in Hiware Bazar were implemented on common lands and on private grasslands. Continuous contour trenches were dug on the hill slopes to arrest the erosion of soil, harvest water, and encourage growth of grass. A number of water harvesting structures were also built in the village: check dams, percolation tanks, and loose boulder structures. Plantations on forest lands and roadsides were also part of the program. When Adarsh Grama Yojana was launched in Maharashtra, there were also some preconditions set for selection of villages. Most important were the four bandis made famous by the Ralegaon Siddhi experience. The four bandis were Kurhat Bandi, ban on felling trees; Cherai Bandi, ban of free grazing; Nas Bandi, family planning; and Nasha Bandi, ban on liquor. People also had to agree to a certain amount of Shramadhan, voluntary physical labor, except for the landless who were exempt from it. There are other bans in the village which were added later. Most significant was the ban on borewells for irrigation, growing sugarcane and banana, and selling one's land to any outsider. These measures illustrate that issue of long-term sustainability. The area irrigated for summer crops has increased from 7 hectares to 72 hectares. In a year of normal rainfall, there is enough water in the wells to irrigate not only the Kharif, Bajra, but also the Rabi, Jawar, and the some summer vegetable crops. Even in unirrigated land, the improvement in soil moisture levels has helped to increase productivity. The range of crops is also considerably more diverse than in the past. People growing cross crops such as potatoes, onions, fruits, grapes and pomegranates, flowers, and wheat. Perhaps the most significant development is that increased water availability has made a second crop possible, and hence migration elsewhere has reduced. Although this has not meant that small and marginal farmers are able to take out of living on their own lands only. It has made their lands much more productive. The conditions of wage employment have also improved with wage rates going up, though they remain on the low side. The improvement of the livestock economy has also helped marginal and small farmers significantly. Concerted efforts have been made to promote Hiware Bazaar's dairy industry as a means to improve the livelihood of all. Loans have been given to many small farmers. As a result, the number of milch animals in the village has increased. These developments are clearly linked to the fact that fodder availability has increased due to the better productivity. Milk production in the village has also witnessed a more than 20-fold increase from 140 to 3000 liters per day. However, one of the learnings has been that groundwater extraction cannot be controlled at a small unit or within a village boundary. Neighboring villages started going for deep borewells and started extracting groundwater over which Hiware Bazaar had no control. Hence, we need institutional norms and understanding at a much large unit like sub-basin or river basin. Students, next we see the water as common pool resource. Over the past few decades, groundwater has become the main source, especially for domestic use and agriculture. This tremendous increase in the use of groundwater has significant impact on water availability and access to it. Current laws on groundwater use are inappropriate because the basic link between access to groundwater and land ownership on which these rules are based are flawed. Since groundwater has to be extracted from the land above, a link was established between land ownership and control. The water drawn from the underground system was assumed to be owned by the landowner. This implies that groundwater is mostly controlled by individuals that own the land. Landowners were not restricted in the amount of water they can take out. Underground water does not obey human land ownership boundaries that are made on the surface. Water is a flowing resource. Today, this is the major source of water for people. When there is so much extraction, it affects others in connected areas. It affects the stock of water that would be available for future generations. Therefore, one cannot allow individual landowners to extract as much water as they wish from their land. There should be some restrictions. These restrictions will be acceptable if we first delink the connection between ownership of land and water drawn from the ground system through tube wells on the land. Regulation is not easy. This is also because for some resource like water, electricity, oil, natural gas, etc., consumption by one person or a sector affects what is available for others. In fact, in a number of states, the answer to falling water table has been not to address the issue itself. State governments have thus often chosen to increase power subsidies to make extraction of ever deeper layers of groundwater possible. The limits of an approach that not only refuse to control access to groundwater but seeks to encourage it with specific subsidies have been clearly understood. The political thinking has to change to make regulation work. This is the only way to stop the negative competition to finish off the common pool resource. Since each person wants their share before someone else, this is the real contemporary challenge. What is required are laws and rules to recognize that water is a common flowing resource. Drinking water is the first priority as well as a human right, and that Panchayati Raj institutions must have control over the use of groundwater. Let us see the dispute over water use between the Perumatti Grama Panchayat in Kerala and the Coca-Cola company. The Panchayat decided not to renew the license for extraction of water because of the lowering of the water table in neighboring areas. There was also decreasing water quality to the extent that the local government primary health center had concluded that the water was not fit for drinking. The issue was brought to the court and is now pending in the Supreme Court. As in January 2014, the two decisions given by judges in Kerala gave two opposing views of groundwater regulation. The first judge found that groundwater is a public resource meant for all, and that the state has a duty to protect it against excessive exploitation. Additionally, the judge made the link that drinking water is a priority. The second judge took a completely different perspective and asserted the primary of landowners' control over groundwater. These two contradictory decisions illustrate the confusion over our laws today. Students, we see the conclusion. In the first section, we looked at the river systems and the diverse physiographic conditions that we find in India. Water use for any reason, whether small watershed or river basin, has to take into account all the inflow and the outflows. With this background, we can understand the inefficient and unfair ways through which water is currently used. How we could be more judicious and fair is examined through the case study of Tungabhadra River Basin. This is a complex exercise but possible. Similarly, for a small region, through careful planning and social initiative, a more judicious use of water for all is feasible. We looked at the effort of the people of Hiware Bazar village and hope that people all over would be inspired towards creative action in their situation. Water resources require both collective action at the local level and appropriate laws and policies at the state and national level. Though the example of groundwater, we can understand the shortcomings in our thinking today. Students, in this lesson, the Himalayan rivers. These are very important in public examination and map finding also. Sometimes the examination short questions also asked. Explained about the Ganga river system explained about the Indus river system. What are the tributaries of Indus river? Like this. The peninsular rivers Godavari, Krishna, Penna, Kaveri, these are very important. Narmada, Tapati, these rivers flowing westwards. These are also important in map pointing. Students, today your homework is write the bandis of Hiware Bazaar. Next question is identify the Himalayan rivers and peninsular rivers in India map.